weird things going on is like a metaphor for the modern day.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice segue.
I don't mind. I can go with it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, isn't that another wise nugget for life from the three wise monkeys? Just go with it.
This is your Crowdcast, your virgin for Crowdcast, I guess, are you?
Oh no, she had a Crowdcast account apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Google was just playing silly buggers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get into the weeds, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are. Thank you for joining us on a Friday fireside that hasn't been around for the past couple of weeks because what were we doing, Lawrence?
We were in the Alps. Actually, I got my t-shirt on. I'm still rocking it.
There you go.
Altitude.
So for people who don't, so we've got to do some shameless promotion at the beginning. For people who don't know what altitude is, Lawrence, how would you describe it to these lovely folks here?
Well, it's not really shameless promotion since we do it once a year, so it's a year away. The next one.
We're going to do it again next year, aren't we?
Yeah, no, we are.
I hope so.
It's a week in the mountains where we get to hang out with amazing people and have amazing experiences and come back feeling energized, which is nice because sometimes when you travel, you feel like you're deflated when you get home. But so yeah, I've been riding a wave of goodness this week, which is nice. So yeah, we managed to take most of our group out there. A couple dropped out due to COVID, which was a shame. But yeah, we had some amazing people from India and the States and all over Europe come to this amazing place that our friend Jack calls Dream Valley in the Alps. And we get to just eat together, go on hikes together, and have amazing experiences and talk about lots of great topics, including how to stay happy when the world's going to shit, which leads us on to today's discussion, really. A lot of conversations around what's going on in the world and how we can stay grounded and hopeful in this world. So yeah, a good, nice segue to today, really.
Masterful, Lawrence. Masterfully done. Awesome. So just to labour the point, if you want to find out more about what this whole altitude thing is, click on that link and you'll be able to get a feel for at least what we're trying to create for people out there. In this, what is a busy world, sometimes a bit of a gloomy world. Before we try and shine some sunshine on your lives, let's have a bit of a check-in. And that's a check-in for all of you watching live. So I see some of you already shared where you're calling in from. I'd love to hear what the weather's like and how you're feeling. So just share in the chat. In the meantime, hello, Bernadette.
Hi. How
Welcome.
are you?
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm interviewing you. Don't flip it on me.
No, please
Well,
don't.
I'm quite rebellious, so there's no guarantee of where it'll go.
Oh dear. Oh, this is going to be a roller coaster.
Can't wait for this.
Okay. Breathe into it. Okay.
Carlos's need for control and structure is going to be challenged.
Oh
over the
man,
next
totally.
hour.
This is going to be, as we call it, an AFGO, another fucking growth opportunity. Gonna stretch my boundaries.
I'm really enjoying the swearing.
Oh yes, we don't care about Apple and their bloody swearing filters.
It's very refreshing because I'm very grateful that I interview quite a lot on the BBC, and for not that I'm really sweary, but I did have a period of time and I kept thinking, I kept saying things like "blimey" and "flipping heck."
Polite swearing.
To swear. Yeah.
Do you know what? I aspire to be able to use the sentence, I interview a lot for the BBC.
Oh, that's just showing off. That is just showing off.
Oh, that's all allowed. All allowed here.
It's a matter of time.
slowly catch you monkey, as they say. But let's kick this off. How are you feeling today, Bernadette? How are you arriving? Is the check-in?
I feel great actually because I'm in the last. So I'm on deadline today for my new play, and today and just before I came and called to you, it was quite inspired by you actually, Carlos. Our conversation was inspiring. I sort of thought I'm just going to sketch it out when I'm in the bathroom, and I feel really confident that I'll finish that today, which will be really, really good. So when I go back on tour tomorrow, so I feel quite calm. Thank you for your calming influence.
Well, I am grateful for those words. It's doing my ego no end of good. So you can come back anytime.
You've got a good calming voice. I was thinking Carlos would be a really good hypnotist.
If only you knew.
Thank you.
Does he try to hypnotize you?
Not yet, but now you've said it, he probably will. He's kind of moving into guru territory, so that's really going to sort of add another layer of that.
I'm going to have to look up online courses, hypnotism made simple.
Exactly. Actually, we were going to have a podcast on it with Anna, who's part of our community, who had me be mildly hypnotized by someone, which was interesting.
I'm now more energized to have them back on. Let's get that list going. Thank you. Lawrence, how are you arriving today?
Yeah, good. Like I said, feeling energized after last week, and yeah, feels like I had a lot of things I wanted to do, including doing a write-up of last week, which I've not done, but also just not caring about that as well and just going with it. So yeah, bit of a carefree week, and we've got building work going on. So every time I get into something, I've got a plumber in my ear asking how I want some tiles done, and I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, trying to go easy on the to-do list this week.
Good. Yeah. Sounds like being calm in the midst of the chaos. Sounds
exactly.
Well, that's another AFCO if there ever was one. I'm feeling quite energized. I'm actually feeling very, very happy after hearing Bernadette's lovely words. I'm just feeling my day's done. Thank you very much. I feel very much validated. My reason for existence is very much being defined here. I was also quite energized by a conversation we had on another community that we're a part of called Likehearted Leaders community. The founder is Claire Perry-Louise, and it's a lovely space. Again, a space for conversation, for open, honest conversation. You should check out her community if you are looking for more connection in the world with like-minded entrepreneurs and professionals. And we had this conversation about the midlife startup and what it meant to people. And I'm really curious, given that myself and Lawrence are going to be 50 next year. We're going to hit that milestone. And then just what does that mean in terms of being excited about the next half and maintaining, someone was telling me today, that kind of childlike attitude to life, which I don't think I've ever grown up. I don't want to grow up. This whole idea of just being, in my perception of this kind of when I think of being grown up, is that very safe mindset and not wanting to explore and play. So I'm very curious about that, and also what that means in terms of having a bit more positive aspect or view of the world. And so that's why I'm very excited to talk to you, Bernadette. So what I hope for, before we kick off, for those people who have joined us who don't know much about you or just discovered you for the first time, maybe just share a little bit about yourself right now, how you prefer to describe yourself, and your favorite potted history of yourself.
Oh, wow.
Today's version.
Exactly.
Well, somebody asked me this yesterday, and I thought it's a really good idea, isn't it, to be able to have a really neat way of describing what you do. And I don't have that, but I would say I'm a writer, and sometimes I perform the things I write. And at the heart of all my work is, kindness and compassion, hope and fun. So I've been creative in various different ways. Yeah, all of my life. And I guess since in the last 10 years, I've really placed compassionate practice at the centre of all of it, and fun.
And so, you've always been you say you're creative the whole of your life. Is that something that's from childhood, or is that something you've been introduced to? Was that an influence from your parents, your environment? What put you down this path, would you say?
Well, it's interesting. I was really interested in what you said about not wanting to grow up, just to connect to that, which is really interesting. So I think, and I've written about it a little bit, actually. I think children are invited to play and have a capacity for play and to use their imaginations. In some ways they have to. That's the way they sort of are empowered and how they learn. And some of us, for whatever reason, feel that we have to leave that space. You know, we have a positivity bias as children that we kind of tend to lose hold of around 8 and 10. And then our survival mechanisms kick in. We get a negativity bias. I'm sure that everybody's sort of aware of all of those things. So I think in order to survive some quite challenging things, developed a gift that I had from a very challenging childhood was a very vivid, brightly hued imagination. So that was a real gift from that. And I just carried on with that, although I would say I'm very, very pro being a grown-up. I think actually we need to be grown up now. We need to take responsibility. We need to consider the repercussions of our actions and what we do, but that we need to sort of perhaps redefine what being grown up is, and that being grown up can be taking responsibility and honouring our obligations, etc. But also that at the centre, if we hold on to that child that jumped in puddles and spent time staring at rainbows and pretending to be other people by wearing silly wigs, all of that stuff. So I think it's important that we're grown up. I think the world really needs us to be grown up in the mythological sense of that, but that we need to hold in our hearts the child that learnt and explored through play. Did that answer your question? Got a bit lost.
Well, it answered many questions.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was inspired by your grown-up thing. I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I think that, you know, we feel like in order to connect to this beautiful, playful, joyful, creative part of ourselves, we have to reject grown-upness. But I've challenged that in myself, and I suppose I'm saying I challenged that. I think that we really need to be grown-ups, not least because of the climate crisis, right? We can't be going, we're all irresponsible children. We can't. Children have to be allowed to be irresponsible. We have to be responsible and yet keep that joy and play and inventiveness and imagination. So I think it, like lots of things, like redefining profit, like redefining ambition, we also have to redefine what it is to be adult and assimilate the things, the beautiful things of childhood into a grown-up place. You know, we need to be warriors, and warriors are grown up.
I love what Stephen said about being grown up means making your own sandwiches.
Yeah, and carrying them.
Yeah, not leaving them at home.
That's it. Having your knapsack, pack your knapsack. So I kept hold of that. I carried on. So I was a jobbing actor for a long time, which was lots of fun, and I worked for music magazines, and then I started I set up storytelling cafes, and I guess so. I always have been creative, and just about made a living from it. But I guess the big change for me was 10 years ago when I started to feel a bit lost in it. I didn't know why I was telling these stories or the purpose of telling them in the face of such enormous challenges. Yeah, and then the other bit of my story started 10 years ago when I put a kind of activism, I suppose, at the centre of it. I love cutting the sandwiches into heart shapes.
Thank you, Brett. Exactly. Make the sandwiches, carry the sandwiches, but make sure you cut them into heart shapes as well.
Francis says my video is a bit sticky. Could I hotspot my phone? I don't know what that means, Vicky. So Francis. So.
Yeah, I think she really wants to see a less juttery version or juddery version of your face. But given the technology challenges you already have had today, I think that might be a step too far. And
Sorry, Francis. Maybe I should just stay really still.
There we go. There's always a solution. We can hear you clearly. We're just like, maybe do the statue
Thank you for telling me
thing.
though, Francis. Sorry, we had.
So there's so many different paths that we could follow there, because I like the conversation about what it means to grow up, and you talk about what I heard there was this. There's this idea of, for me, agency, and you talked about responsibility, and even the word responsibility is an interesting word for me at the moment. And then this sense of wonder, awe, freedom, play, that is the child aspect of things. So maybe I'm going to park that for a bit, maybe, because you also then started unfolding the whole 10-year journey aspect of things, which is, I think, going to be at the core of the conversation we want to have. Because one of the things when we were talking the other day, an intention that we would like to have for people is to come away feeling a bit more optimistic and hopeful about the world, given where we're at. And so I think telling a little bit about your story and your journey of what it sounded like 10 years ago, just thinking, oh, big things happening around me. What do I do about it? Or what can I do about it? That's how I understood it. And so maybe sharing a bit of that story would be helpful for people.
Yeah, hopefully I think I'm doing my show at the in September, but I haven't spoken to Lawrence about that. So if you do see that, you'll see the whole version. But basically, I'd been having a lot of fun, mainly wearing petticoats and running up and down ladders, making sort of theatre, and like really enjoying telling those stories. But in the background, this is about 10 years ago, I had this sort of background tinnitus of there's loads of really big problems in the world. There's climate change, and there's oil shortages, and there's pollution, and there's wars, and there's famine, and there's racism, and there's all that. That was kind of going on in the background. And I suppose I was thinking, it's fun what I'm doing, but I don't know how it's helping anything really, apart from kind of entertaining people. And then 10 years ago, some of you may remember or not know, some riots happened in London, started in London in 2011 as a result of the death of a young man called Mark Duggan, who was shot and killed by police. And then his relatives and his family started to protest to kind of defend him. It turned into a riot, and the riots spread all over London, Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol. And I was in Edinburgh when the riots were happening, and I just saw them on the television screen. And we heard really loud things like there'd not been that many fires in London since the Blitz, and people were calling for the army to be called in and water cannons. And there was a horrible, very deeply unpleasant response from the British media, saying the rioters should be clubbed like baby seals. And, it was horrible. It was a very racist, anti-poor people, anti-young people backlash. The Blitz were really depressing. The response to the riots was kind of more depressing. And I came back from Edinburgh. I was really deflated by it. And it affected a lot of my friends as well in various ways. And so I was in the post office with all of this going around my head thinking, what is the point of anything I do? And also, what can I do? I have no power. I don't have money. I don't have a platform. Yeah. And there was this boy in front of me in the queue, and he didn't have enough money to pay for his stamp, so I paid for it for him. And he was immensely grateful. It was a ridiculously grateful response to this 50p, which took me a few moments. And it wasn't anything that any of you wouldn't have done. It was nothing big. But I saw that it kind of did make a difference to him in that moment. So on the bus, on the way home, in my usual impulsive style, I thought, I'm just going to do that every day. I'm going to try and do something kind for a stranger every single day for a year. I realised it'd be 366 days because it would cover a leap year. And I was going to see if kindness could change the world. It wasn't a project. I didn't have a logo. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was doing. I started it on a ridiculous date. It wasn't neat, like the 1st of January or, I started it on the 18th of August, and that's what I did. I put it on social media. It got 12 likes and 2 comments, which was revolutionary because at the time, I just didn't really do social media, but I'm like, woohoo, 12 likes, come on, let's go. And I did it, and it changed everything. it brought me back to hope from despair. It showed me a version of the world that I can always return to and I can always occupy. That isn't sort of Disney Pollyanna land, but that is the truth. That is the smaller, lesser known story and version of the world that we're not told about. And I've carried on doing it. So it's a daily practice. It has been since that date. So it's been 10 years now. Yeah. And so it changed my life, and it also changed everything I do in terms of my sort of creative work. And it got me into trouble a bit.
Well, I'm curious about the impact on your creative work, because I'm sure other people will be curious about how what that means, and also now I'm curious about how it got you into trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly tell you one of the things that happened that got me into trouble, because it was funny. So I went out of the house one morning. It was in the middle of the first year. And you know when you go to the corner shop, if you're lucky enough to live near a corner shop and you've just got like your yoga trousers on, you haven't really got dressed, you might have flip-flops on. And I just went to get some milk. And I saw this lady and she was carrying the biggest bags. They were just so big. So I said, "Oh, would you like me to help you carry your shopping bag?" Because I thought there's an opportunity to be kind. And she says, "Yes, thank you so much." So 2 hours later, we got to her house. She lived miles away. And I told my partner that I'd just gone out to get a pint of milk. I was like one of those 70s dads that goes out for a packet of cigarettes and never comes back. I was gone for hours. It was really heavy. My arms really hurt. I don't know how she was going to do it on her own. Got to her house. They were lovely, her family. You know, she said I'd been sent by angels, which was very nice. I didn't look like I'd been sent by angels. I looked like I'd been sent by, I don't know, second-hand shop. I got back home hours late for work, not properly dressed, really sweaty, dirty. And Gareth, my partner, just went, "I thought you'd been a long time getting the milk." But I stayed sort of friendly with that lady ever since, because she does live locally, so it's very nice. So that's one example of trouble. In terms of my creative practice, it was really extraordinary. So I'd been making theatre and sort of making a living out of making theatre with other people and with myself. So more kind of at the same time, I'd started a storytelling cafe, which ran in London, Brighton for about 10 years. And I talked to people. I was there every month, and I'd say, I talked to people about this kindness thing I was doing. So the audience got to know it, and they got to join in. So a really lovely woman came up to me in the middle of one of these cafes and said, "Oh, I've been really interested in what you're doing. Would you like to write a children's book?" And I've never really thought of writing a children's book about kindness. And I went, "Okay." And I thought it was amazing. It's like when people say, "Oh, this woman came up to me and asked me to be a film when I was in a shop in Peckham." It's like one of those slightly annoying, probably for other people, but literally a woman came up to me and offered me a book deal. I wrote 2 children's books. And then, so things just came to me. I suddenly got really lucky. Like, I got asked to write 2 books. I then got asked to write a column for a magazine. I then got asked to write some books for adults. They all did really well. I went on tour all around America. And obviously I was genuine and sincere. I wasn't doing this experiment in life, if you like, in order to improve my career or to give me more opportunities, but it really did. It really did. And I'm not making any judgment, or this is just what happened. Money started coming to me. I'm not a person that normally says that. Don't you? But it was strange. It was just, yes, it felt magical. It felt as if by doing this, without any intention of making money out of it or getting a profit out of it or improving my chances as an artist, that happened. But so that lots of luck happened. But alongside that, whenever I did a project, I thought to myself, is this kind? And what is it giving the people who are receiving it? And what is it giving the people that are participating in it? And how can it playfully and joyfully communicate the idea of kindness so that people can see it for themselves? This works, it's easy, it's joyful, it's really good fun. And it can change the world and is. It's actually what sticks the world together every day. So I suppose everything I did after that, I did a few sort of large scale installations with the Satellite Centre at the Royal Festival Hall. I did lots of small theatre projects. I kept thinking, how can I communicate this idea? It was always part of the question. Yeah. How can I do that? I've forgotten to stay still. I'm wobbling around. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. The captivated by the words as much as anything else, really. And it resonates a lot what you're saying because of the kinds of things that we try and share in our community and on our programs. I think one word that springs to mind when you're talking about your journey is this serendipity.
Yes.
And how it feels like a very living example of the word serendipity. I'm wondering, from your perspective, were you able to explain why these positive things are happening to you?
Thank you, Francis. Thank you. Well, I mean, it was extraordinary. It's difficult to talk about because I don't want to put people off by sounding like either I'm saying if you do this is a really good way to like accelerate your success or get rich, because I didn't get rich. At the same time, it truly, in the deepest sense of the word, it is magical. So to start with, if you do something kind, and obviously I learned a little bit about the science on my journey, your body rewards you with oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. So you get the helper's high buzz from doing it. And obviously I was like pretty euphoric because I was heavily into a year of doing acts of kindness. So I was really high, which was really beautiful. And I learned to be more open in the world. It kind of cracked me open, which wasn't without pain sometimes, because I was also open to sadness and longing and suffering. But it was really beautiful way of being that cracked open in the world. And I was interacting with strangers every single day. So I was gifted by their stories and their beauty and their honesty and their pain and their hopes and their joy. And I felt like I'd entered this wonderland that had always been there, always been in front of me. And I'd been wandering around in this fog of fear and worry. And that because I'd now entered the wonderland, which was the same place, just through a different lens, I would never go back. So I was rich. I was rich with experience and with connection and with wonder. And because of it, I think people were attracted to it. I wouldn't say even me. It was like they wanted to talk to me about it. They wanted to do it as well. They said to me, can you do this project and that project? Can you write this and write that and do this and do that? And it just continued. But for me, it always came back to this daily practice. There are people who say you don't need to do it every day. You can let it go after you've done it for a while. But for me, the magic is in the daily practice, the focused, daily, intentional practice of kindness.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Your
vibe
attracts your tribe. Thank you. And
this is I think this is the interesting aspect of how we turn up in the world somehow shifts the world that we perceive. And when you're talking about before, it's like I was thinking of parallel universes. You were in one universe and just looked not as great, and then you just shifted slightly and then stepped into a different parallel universe, exactly the same place, but for some reason things were different. And through that, it sounded like just setting an intention, trying to look at the world differently. The world around you responded. And it sounds a bit woo-woo, but that's how it's coming.
It does, except that if you think about I invite you to consider when you fell in love, or you had a crush. You had your crush, which wasn't yet crushed. It was a hope. Have a crush on someone, or you've just fallen in love, or you just had a baby, something like that. Then you go into the world and the flowers are yellow and everyone is really beautiful and it does smell really great. So you can have that all the time. You can have that the invitation for yourself is to fall back in love with the world.
That is, this is weird, because this morning I was saying exactly the same thing in terms of this idea of this midlife startup thing. I know, is that because one of the invitation I had was like, I asked everyone in the call, it's like, have you ever felt in love, and how did that feel? And just to think about you getting to a stage in life where, you know, we're talking about get to an age, you get a bit more cynical. It's like, how could you then fall back in love? And then what does that mean for your energy and your outlook and your optimism and your hope and all the things that you would want to do, you know, that you'll want to try, because everything feels like, yeah, I want to try things out. You're energized. So that, again, the serendipity thing, just like, that resonated a lot.
I think the midlife thing's really a beautiful thing to consider, Carlos. It's really smart of you. Even if you're not there yet, I think it's a really useful analogy, because it's about loving the world with the world's wrinkles and liver spots and cellulite and receding hairline, and loving the world when the world's hair's a bit faded, or, you know, continuing on that metaphor chain that so it's letting go of the expectation in yourself or of the world of perfection, that it has to be good or bad, that it's complicated and beautiful and rich, and that people are sometimes grumpy and clumsy and stubborn, but always really beautiful and rich. Yeah.
I'm curious before what you said about by being open to the world, you were able to experience all of these quite positive feelings and lovely connections, but it also meant being open to the sadness.
Yeah.
And I kind of, in my head, you know, that can be a bit scary for people. They find it challenging to be exposed to the tougher experiences of life or emotions. I'm curious from your perspective how you managed to work with that, because it, you know, that can for some people bring them down, or they just don't want to engage with that.
Yeah. It's hard. I think you can help yourself by, I'm really interested, whoever wrote the power, because I'm very I work with myths quite a lot. I'm very influenced by Joseph Campbell, so thanks for posting that. I thought about the whole journey in mythological terms as well, actually, which was really helpful. But in terms of, so first of all, really go gently with yourself. If you're opening yourself to the world and what you encounter is pain, let's say, or anger, and you have, your top job is to know yourself, to know that that is a bit much, actually, that's a bit painful, that's a bit too angry, that's a bit too depressing. It's okay to withdraw then. You know, there was a period that I had one day during the first year, and I talk about it during the show, where I met 3 people in a day that were crying. It was a really difficult day. And the next day, although I'd made this promise to myself to always have a physical interaction with a stranger, I just thought, I can't do that. I can't, there's so much sadness. I can't take that risk another day. So on the next day, I actually made this piece of artwork that I put on the church notice board, which was on the high street. So it's I think it's really important, if you're interacting and trying to be compassionate and kind, protect yourself by trying not to anticipate a response. You know, if you do something kind and you think someone's going to go, oh my gosh, I love those flowers, thank you, and the response you get is, no thanks, I hate chrysanthemums, then you might get hurt. So first of all, notice if you're anticipating a response and let it go. Secondly, if it hurts, if it's too painful out there, I'm going to say shorthand, then withdraw and tend to yourself, tend to your wounds. You know, you don't have to keep being on the front line. It is difficult. And the other thing is to do the work of learning to accept the complexity of life and of ourselves. You know, we're complex. We have, you know, I guess Jung spoke about it in terms of shadow self, didn't he? We don't accept, or find it hard to accept, those darkest or more painful things about us. And sometimes we can find it hard to accept the dark or more painful things about community or the world. So it's just accepting that it's all out there, and that if it's too much, sometimes it's really fine to retreat and attend to yourself first. Attend to yourself. Yeah.
Putting on the oxygen mask for yourself.
Yeah, it is. But it's also really thinking it through. You know, I think sometimes people told me the most extraordinary things, and I'd have to go and sort of process it and say, okay, I think this is why they told me, this is what had happened. I can't help, or I can help. If I can't help, that's okay. If I can help, this is what I can offer. Just allow yourself the time to process it. But it also brought me very quickly to a really important process of my practice, which was realizing in the profoundest sense that you are what you eat in every sense. We are what we consume. So I changed very quickly in that first year. I think I spoke to you about this, Carlos. I really was mindful of everything I read and everything I watched, primarily in terms of the news, but also in terms of all cultural input to counter the darkness that I sometimes was up against. Yeah.
Oh, even more paths to go down.
Sorry, I really do go on.
No, it's
Not
wonderful. I think, you know, if it wasn't for Lawrence having to pick up his son early, we could go for another 2 hours. That's why you're coming. Yeah, this is why we're having you to come to summer camp, because we can spend all this time around the fire.
I just wanted to share something with you in relation to. Sorry, I can't see who mentioned Joseph Campbell, but a teacher of
Anya.
mine. Yeah. And thank you, Anya. Spoke to me, which. Oh, thank you, darling. So, and I think this is really, really beautiful, and it's in terms of myth, and sometimes myths can really support us in trying to understand what we're going through. And I'm going to really oversimplify what he said. It's a wonderful teacher I have called Dr. Martin Shaw. He's a mythologist. And he talks about our personal journeys to the underworld. You know, when you go there, when you're in the underworld, which for me, I guess that year was when I was really despairing when I first came back to Deptford. And it's to not get lost in the underworld, to not stay down there, but also to not be frightened of exploring when you're down there, that darkness. And then when you come out, you might be covered in soot. It's apparent you've been to the underworld, right? You emerge. And the important thing is what you bring with you back to the village. So what you've learnt from the underworld, that experience. So you're not just bringing up pain and wounds and you're bleeding and you've got a bruised head and you're crying and you never stop crying and you just keep screaming, but that you examine the darkness and you learn and you actually bring with you from the underworld a gift, and you share that gift with a village. Apologies if I'm misinterpreting what I think he said, but I really loved that, because I thought, there it is. If we're depressed and we're down, that's okay. We're human. It's the human experience sometimes. And it's not getting lost there, so not getting stuck in our sadness, having the courage to explore that darkness and what we can learn from it, and then come up. And that thing about bringing with you your gift for the village, it's so beautiful. What have you learned? And not only for yourself, but share that learning from your journey in the underworld with the village. It's amazing. And I suppose it's not a big thing really, but I suppose I tried to bring this thing, which was actually the story that we are told about the world and about each other is one part of a bigger story. And I want to tell the other story. That the story is, the world is run on love, and it's messy and clumsy and imperfect love, but it is love nonetheless.
It reminds me, it brings me back to what you said before about responsibility. And
yes,
what I'm
being
hearing
a grown
is
up.
this, being a grown up, responsibility. So we found this new toy, I'm going to stretch the metaphor. And as a child, you might just keep it for yourself. But as an adult, you want to share it with more people, because you have a responsibility to pass on that joy.
And know that if you share it, if you share the toy, there's a lot more fun. I mean, if the toy's a ball, right? We all know that ball games are better with a few people. We just roll with this metaphor. Yeah. I think that's a really beautiful example. Yeah.
Oh. I want to bring it back to you were saying when you were making decisions about the work you were going to do or the choices, something around, is this going to be kind? Is this going to be compassionate? And I wanted to bring Lawrence in here as well, because we talk about on our programs this idea of having a mantra. I know, Lawrence, if you want to elaborate for people who are not familiar with why we talk about mantras in Vision 2020.
Well, the key thing for me is a lot of the time we have great ideas of maybe where we want to go or direction we want to head in, and struggle with implementing that in the day-to-day. And so a mantra for me, a bit like Bernadette's project, is almost like a daily commitment or practice to that future that we're trying to create, or a feeling we're trying to create for ourselves. And so just having a simple few words to think about, just to allow us to make decisions, I think is a key thing. So if we get an opportunity or something lands in our lap, it's like, I had this chat with someone yesterday. Oh, this sounds great. Someone's saying I should do this, or like that woman who came to offer you the book deal. Is that something you want to do? And so I think having a mantra allows, I think, people to make those decisions rather than having to then do a lot of soul searching. So yeah, it's ideally a bit of a gut check. So yeah, for me, my mantra is effortless impact, and that always brings me back to simplicity. Really, I always ask myself, what would this look like if it was easier? I think it's always a useful thing.
I love that. I can't tell you how much I love that. It's so important what you just said. And it connects for me with art and activism, which is the space that I occupy, the cross-section, I suppose, a lot of people do. Because there's a couple of things. One, it has to be easy. Otherwise, it's really tiring. And you just end up lying on the floor, eating a burger and giving it up. But secondly, in terms of sort of art and activism or wanting to make any sort of positive change, I think it's really good to think, what can I offer? So what can I bring back to the village? What can I offer the village? But also in that offer, whatever your offer is, how can you enjoy it and have it be easy for you? Where's your joy in the thing that you're offering, so that it's maintained, it's sustainable. So if you're a business person or you're an artist, whatever you are, whatever kind of creative, whether it's creative enterprise, creative business, creative artist, that if the thing that you're offering the world is a joy to you as well and is easy, wow, that's just going to that can continue forever, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the challenge with a lot of activism, isn't it? That people burn out because it's hard and it's a struggle because they care so much. It's almost part of that
but
persona.
Also because I think people get... I'm sorry I interrupted you. Sorry, Lauren.
No, not at all.
Sorry. People, I think, Carlos and I were talking about it, people also can get concerned with scale, like they have to do it has to be big, it has to be a big splash. And actually, if you give yourself permission to be small and you understand the power, the might of small things, you can always do small, right?
I think linked to this, linking the mantra to also what I heard before you say something about letting go of expectations a little. And I'm going to mix the serendipity. There's having this kind of simple guiding principle, which is your mantra, or is it kind? And then there's letting go of what you think should happen versus what actually happens. And what that means in terms of ensuring the right things come about, but also how our experience of the world changes because we're less, I think, driven by this ego to make things at scale. We're responding to things in the moment, and we feel that we have agency, as opposed to it isn't worth it because I can't do anything about this thing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. I mean, I kind of feel that since 2016, actually, we've been in it can feel like we've been in a boxing ring. We've just being hit with a challenge after challenge. So I think it's kind to yourself. I worked with some prisoners a little while ago, some women prisoners, and one of the women I was working with said to me, I'm able to be hopeful as long as I allow myself to have small hopes some days, and know that having a small hope is okay. And I just thought that really affected me, and I asked what she meant. She went, sometimes I just hope that I really enjoy my breakfast. And that's fine, you know, and then it allowed her to have bigger hopes other days. I thought that was really amazing. So it's kind of, I suppose it's about adjusting to the moment that you're in. What can I do right here, right now? It might not be what I was planning yesterday because this has happened or this has come up. This has changed. Yeah.
I think, you know, related to that with people in our community who, on one hand, they want to build these sustainable businesses. They want to build these lives that are filled with freedom, autonomy, and agency. But also, some of them are also quite purpose-driven. They want to make change in the world. They want to see these, you know, quite big shifts happen in the way we live and what we're doing, maybe with the planet or even within just generally in society. And when maybe you pin your hopes onto that change happening, and maybe even pinning your happiness that change happens, if it doesn't happen fast enough, if it doesn't go the way you want it to go right now, how that affects your energy and your ability to continue. And so, yeah, I'm trying to connect this idea of this, like, while you have the big hope, how you make sure the tiny hopes keep you going.
Yeah, it feels to me, recently I've been thinking a lot about acceptance and how important acceptance is, which includes tricky things for me, like accepting that I might have to go slower than I thought I'd have to go, accepting that I might have to say things again and again and again before they're heard, and that's okay. It's not because people are deliberately not listening. It's because sometimes you just have to do that. So accepting you might have to say things a few times, you might have to do things a few times, you might have to repeat yourself, you might have to try different ways, you might have to learn to be more gentle, you might have to learn to be less judgmental. All of those things. And accepting that. I also think there's something useful for me about remembering to be humble. This is just for me. I am one person in a planet full of amazing earthlings, which includes humans and all other creatures. And if I accept that I'm in that beautiful ecosystem, just carrying on doing my thing that I'm able to do, instead of trying to be like Wonder Woman, don't have to be Wonder Woman, just to have to accept my beautiful, important, but small space in that sort of ecosystem of connectivity. It kind of lets you, it's relaxing in a way, because it's like, do you know what, I'm not doing this alone. It's not even just up to the people that are in my town or country. There's lots of us. It can energize you to continue knowing that you don't have to carry it all. In fact, we shouldn't, you know. I'm not sure whether, I think that heroism and courage is important, but I'm not sure whether heroes are very useful to us anymore. You know, we don't need to have our capes. We just need to carry on with what we're able to do. I think, you know, cape. I'm still. Yeah, well, you need a cape because you're a hypnotist. you need a cape with a big collar and some dry ice. But me and Lawrence would just have our t-shirts.
Exactly. Don't look around the eyes. Look in the eyes.
I'm conscious of time, and I'd like to also give an opportunity for you, Bernadette, to share. We'll talk a bit more about summer camp in a bit, about you being there. But is there anything that you'd like to share with people that if they want to get in touch with you? You know, you say you've got a new show coming out, where we can point people to learn and experience you more.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm on social media. I don't really do Facebook very much, but I'm on Twitter as Betty Russell. Betty spelled Bette Russell. And I'm on Instagram with my name, which is Bernadette Russell. And my website is just bernadetterussell.com. I'm on tour with 366 Days of Kindness at the moment. Thank you. So there's and that the dates for that can be found on the In Crowd website, which are my producers. Yeah, it'd just be nice to hear from anyone. I hope.
And you have a book? Or a new book?
Yeah,
recent book.
Yeah, my new book's called How to Be Hopeful. Which a little bit of I've spoken about. So just before lockdown, I chatted to loads of people from all over the world about hope, and it came as a result of me noticing that it felt like it was quite almost under attack, and I wanted to sort of find out why it was important to me and to others, to kind of define it for myself, because I suppose I was talking about active hope in the way that the great Joanna Macy talks about active hope. So I interviewed lots of people, including a firefighter who was in the midst of fighting fires in the Blue Mountains. Incredibly sunny and optimistic. It was amazing, considering he was a volunteer firefighter in the worst fires on the earth. Spoke to lots of people from all over the world, researched historical triumphs over adversity as well as current ones. I spoke to science fiction writers. I spoke to scientists. Yes, so I just really had a big dig into hope. The week that I handed the manuscript into my publishers, COVID happened. So then there were a few rewrites, because obviously you can't really ignore a global pandemic when you're discussing hope. But it came out during lockdown in the UK, which felt kind of amazing and also sort of challenging. So it's called How to Be Hopeful, if you'd like to hear. Oh yes, of course, Ray, of course, yes, please do.
You got another offer to be in a book.
Yeah, please do come to me. And sorry, I haven't responded to somebody said, can we be our own hero? I think that's for a much longer conversation. I made a show a few years 6 years ago called How to Be a Hero, because I'd met a man in Seattle who was a self-styled superhero. He literally had a superhero costume called Phoenix Jones. He was amazing, and I got interested in that as a phenomenon, and I sort of got interested in heroism and heroes, and
wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we can. It's good. Heroism is good. I'm not sure about heroes, even our own.
It feels
but that's just me.
A wonderful conversation around a fireplace or an open fire in September at this place. I think it's called Summer Camp. So
I've heard of
that. There's whispers of this thing. So if you would like to talk about this hope, heroism, being humble, maybe being humorous, then please join us in September. Lawrence will drop a link into the chat to let you know how to find out more. Yes, please. Before that, and also actually on the hero thing, while we were at altitude, everyone was given a superhero name. Lawrence's being Deadpan.
Deadpan, yeah, I'm not sure about that. It's better than Super Dry, which was the first.
Well, they had three names: the Deadpan. Then before that was Super Dry, and then there was 7 of 10. Which I have no idea how.
Wow, I like that.
Actually, the best one was Stephen, who's in the chat. It was Optimist Prime, because he's Mr. Bubbly, he's Mr. Chirpy.
Yeah.
So it did
no, I interviewed hundreds of people about who their heroes were as part of the project. So it was sort of really interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? And for me, it crosses over into whole conversations about statues, who we have statues of. Should we have statues of solo people when actually, truthfully, everything is collective? All efforts and achievements are collective. It's a really big thing to consider, and I'm just in the middle of thinking about it myself. But
that's a whole rabbit hole I'm sure we could go down. Maybe that's for the sequel of this conversation. What are the role of heroes these days?
Love it.
Yeah. So yeah, before we close off, any final words, Bernadette? Anything that you're taking away with you from our conversation this morning?
It's so lovely to meet everyone. I'm really looking forward to the start, to the happy, I can't even say the name of it, to September. Thank you. The happy startup summer. That's a lot of sibilance for me. And really looking forward to that. And I would just say, I'd just like to issue everyone with a challenge, which is in the next 24 hours, just allow yourself to notice one kindness that you receive from a stranger, from someone you don't know. It can be really small. To allow yourself to witness an act of kindness and notice it, and to do one kind thing for anyone, which can include yourself. But it's just an invitation to see the world a little bit differently. You may already do that, of course, because you're all amazing people. But yeah, so allow yourself to witness an act of kindness, to do an act of kindness, and to note when you receive an act of kindness.
Lovely. Thank you, Bernadette. Lawrence, anything that you want to take away with you?
Bernadette's amazing energy and turn of phrase. I've just been jotting down half the stuff you've said. It started off with, what was it? Brightly hued, vivid imagination, which I love. And you are what you eat. I'm going to take that away, because one of my goals after our trip last week was to not look at my phone for the first hour and last hour of each day. Which is working.
Well, mine's...
But yeah, it does just as
really
a mantra.
Also, I don't have it available anywhere else, and I will make it available somewhere during August. But at the back of my book, I've got a directory of hope, which has got a list of all the sort of podcasts and publications. What I'm actually going to do in August is expand upon that list so I can include yourselves as well, so that there'll be a sort of free directory of hope, because lots of people there are loads of it. Basically, all of the major news organisations globally have started saying, do you know what, this whole really horrible news thing isn't happening, and nobody's really buying it. So there's loads of going on. So there is a little directory of hope in the back of my book, but I am going to produce a bigger free downloadable one, which will include your beautiful selves, of course, over August. So I'll let you know, and then maybe you could pass it on. So
definitely,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to a little book of hypnotists, and Carlos will be the next one on that list.
A little book of a little hypnotist.
Exactly. Hey, we're not going to height shame now.
No, please don't start doing that. I'm very short.
No.
And Lawrence is very tall.
Okay, on that note, I need to go. I am
has
6'3".
to go.
Yeah, some people think I'm Carlos's dad, but that's not.
Well, thank you very much, Bernadette. Really appreciate your wisdom,
so much,
your story, your words, and your hope. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us, and I hope you leave energized and hopeful, and heed Bernadette's words about seeing as well as doing some kindness today.
Thanks, everyone.
Time.
I'm sorry I didn't get to answer everyone. Thank you so much as well. It's really lovely, and I can go back to my final scene of my play refreshed and full of love. Thank you.
Wonderful. Awesome. Good luck with that. Break a leg. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.